Have you ever wondered how criminal profilers get inside the minds of the most dangerous individuals? They piece together clues from a crime scene to build a picture of the person responsible. Their work is fascinating, a blend of science, art, and intuition. But what happens when that picture is wrong? What happens when a single mistake in a profile allows a monster to walk free, to continue their reign of terror while investigators chase a ghost? Today, we re-diving deep into one of the most chilling cases where a flawed profile led to a catastrophic failure of justice. This isn't just about a mistake, it's about the lives that were shattered because of it. It all began in the quiet suburbs of a city just like yours. A series of brutal crimes had the community paralyzed with fear. The attacks were random, yet meticulously planned. The police were stumped. They had no witnesses, no forensic leads, nothing. Desperate, they called in a renowned criminal profiler. Let's call him Dr. Alistair Finch. Finch was a legend in his field, known for his uncanny ability to paint a vivid picture of the unsub or unknown subject. Finch reviewed the case files, walked the crime scenes, and absorbed every detail. He noted the high level of organization, the control exerted over the victims, and the lack of any obvious motive like robbery. After weeks of intense analysis, he delivered his profile. The person they were looking for, Finch declared, was a white male, late 30s to early 40s. He would be highly intelligent, charming, and hold a position of authority, perhaps a professional like a doctor or a lawyer. He would be married, a pillar of his community, hiding his dark side behind a mask of normality. This type of killer, a classic psychopath, feels no empathy and sees others as mere objects for their gratification. The profile was compelling, a textbook example of an organized offender. The police force, armed with this new direction, focused all their resources on finding this man. They scrutinized local professionals, cross-referenced lists of community leaders, and spent months investigating men who fit Finch's description. The problem was, none of them were the killer. While the police chased this phantom, the real perpetrator struck again. And again, the community's fear turned to anger. The pressure was immense. So, where did the profile go so wrong? The mistake wasn't in the analysis of the crime scene behavior itself, but in the interpretation of the motivation behind it. Finch had locked onto the idea of a classic psychopath. Psychopathy is a personality disorder characterized by a lack of empathy, manipulativeness, and a grandiose sense of self-worth. They are often chameleons, blending in perfectly. The organized nature of the crimes seemed to fit this model perfectly. However, there's another, often misunderstood, condition: sociopathy. While the terms are sometimes used interchangeably, there are key differences. Sociopaths tend to be more impulsive and erratic. While they also lack empathy, their behavior can be shaped more by their environment and upbringing. They might form attachments to a small group or individual, but see the rest of society as an enemy. They are less likely to maintain the mask of sanity for long periods. The profiler had completely dismissed the possibility of a sociopath because the crimes were so well organized. This was the critical error. He assumed organization equals a stable, intelligent psychopath. But what if the organization wasn't a product of innate personality, but of obsessive, meticulous planning driven by a different psychological need? Let's also talk about geographical profiling. This is a fascinating subfield where profilers use the locations of crimes to determine an offender's anchor point, usually their home or workplace. They create a probability map, a hot zone where the killer is most likely to live. In this case, the crimes were spread out across a wide area, which further reinforced Finch's theory of a killer with a car, a stable job, and the means to travel. He was looking for someone in the affluent suburbs, far from the crime clusters. Months turned into a year. The task force was exhausted, and leads had dried up. The community had lost faith. Then, a rookie detective, reviewing the case files for the 10th time, noticed something everyone else had missed. It wasn't about the crimes themselves. But what happened in between them? There were small, seemingly insignificant petty crimes, vandalism, minor thefts, occurring in a tight cluster in a lower-income neighborhood. These small crimes would spike in the days leading up to a major attack. He brought his theory to his superiors, who were skeptical. What did petty vandalism have to do with a sophisticated serial killer? But the young detective persisted. He argued that the killer wasn't a calm, collected psychopath. He was a deeply insecure individual, possibly a sociopath, whose rage and frustration would build up. The petty crimes were him testing the waters, small releases of pressure before the final, explosive act. He wasn't charming or successful. He was likely a loner, unemployed, or in a menial job, someone who felt invisible to the world. This new theory completely inverted the original profile. They weren't looking for a respected professional in the suburbs. They were looking for a nobody in a rundown part of town. This also changed the geographical profile. The killer wasn't traveling into these areas to commit crimes. He was already there. This was his turf. The spread-out nature of the main crimes wasn't about sophisticated travel. It was about creating a buffer, a misdirection to keep the focus away from his home base. The task force, with nothing to lose, shifted its focus. They started looking at low-level offenders in the neighborhood the rookie detective had identified. They weren't looking for a doctor or lawyer anymore. They were looking for a recluse, someone with a history of minor offenses and social isolation. And they found him. He was a man in his early 20s, living in his mother's basement, just blocks away from the center of that vandalism cluster. He was unemployed, had a juvenile record for petty theft, and was described by neighbors as quiet and strange. He was the complete opposite of Dr. Finch's profile. A search of his home uncovered irrefutable evidence linking him to every single one of the major crimes. When interrogated, his psychology became clear. He wasn't a cool, calculating psychopath. He was a deeply insecure sociopath, filled with rage at a world he felt had rejected him. The meticulous planning of his crimes wasn't a sign of intelligence, but of obsession. It was the one area of his life where he could feel powerful and in control. He was the invisible man who had found a way to make the entire city see him, to fear him. The case of the mistaken profile serves as a powerful lesson. Criminal profiling is not an exact science. It's a tool, and like any tool, it can be flawed. The over-reliance on archetypes, like the charming psychopath, can create a dangerous tunnel vision, blinding investigators to possibilities that don't fit the neat and tidy box. It highlights the crucial difference between psychopathy and sociopathy, and how a misunderstanding of these conditions can send an investigation spiraling in the wrong direction. It also shows the importance of integrating all forms of analysis. The behavioral profile, the geographical data, and old-fashioned police work must all work together. The breakthrough didn't come from a legendary profiler. It came from a rookie detective who looked at the small details everyone else had dismissed. This story is a stark reminder that the human mind is infinitely complex. Killers don't always fit the molds we create for them. Justice is found not just in grand theories, but in the relentless pursuit of truth, even when it leads to the most unexpected places. It's about questioning assumptions and always looking for the detail that doesn't fit the picture. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this case as fascinating as I did, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the world of criminal psychology. Stay safe and see you next time.